Hello friend, welcome back. In our previous video here we successfully get all the tower year by the class by and the subject and the exam type, all that is student, right? So right now here we successfully did that work. Like if you go to our mark entry into the mark entry page. So into the mark entry page, if you select any year, if you select as a class 2, automatically class 2 related, all that subject will be loaded. If you select as a subject, if you select as a terminal, and after that if you click as a search, then every data perfectly is now getting, and also is display as a ID number, the student name, the father name, and the gender, and that is our marks. Okay, so right now I want to assign these marks. Okay, and here I want to load one of the submit form, because from to this position I want to actually insert all the data in our this database table, and here I want to save all that our mark. So if you want to do that work, so that is in our add page. That means right now if you go to our add page, and in the add page here I have already displayed everything. I think you already understand that part, right friend? And that is our I have passed one of the hidden as a student ID, and there is our ID number. So that's all. And now first of all, that is actually our ID number, student number, father name, gender, and marks. So that is our T head. You can see that is our T head is now visible. Okay, so now into the that is actually one of the div. So in this div actually one of the dnone, right? So I want to add one of the input field into the input field area. That will be also into the in our dnone area. So here better I want to add one of the input field. Okay, I want to add in the input field, and type will be as a submit. And also I want to put one of the class. Okay, I put one of the class, and that will be as the same as a btn. I use that as a round or rounded, and then btn primary. Okay, btn primary. So this type of one of the button I want to display, and here I want to also pass one of the value. Or value will be as a submit. Okay, so this type of one of the button I want to add. First of all, I want to check it. Now click as a save all. So that is in our dnone. So that is into the dnone dev. So here it not should be displayed before. Now I click as a save all, and now refresh it. So right now you can see our this button is not visible, and also here they have the long space. So for the search. So for the search, before I have used that as a top margin. So right now we don't need to use any margin. Click as a save all, and now refresh it. Yeah, it's now pretty well. So now I select one of the year, I select on the class, I select the subject, I select that is student, and now click as a search. Everything is great, and you can see that is our submit button. Perfect. So now I want from here I want to insert this data. If you want to insert it, that is our one of the form. You can see that is actually one of the forms. So this form actually started. This form is started from to this position. So all the data now I want to store. So if you want to store this data, we have to create one of the route, right? So now I name it as the same as a marks. Okay, marks, and then entry store. So this type of one of the route I want to create. Now go to our web route. And this route I want to create in our marks prefix. So I copy it, and here after that I paste it. So that will be one of the post method, right? Because from here I pass that data, I pass it as a post method, and also they have the CSRF token. So now that will be as a post method, and in here I name it. I name this route will be as a mark. Okay, the marks entry and the store I copy it. And now that will be as a mark entry store. Okay, and also I want to update it that URL will be as a store, and in our mark controller I want to create one of the method as a mark store. So this type of one of the method I want to create in our marks controller. So if you want to create it, now go to our default. Okay, that means not the default, that is a mark controller, right? So I have already completed 2 of these, so that 2 of these I want to get it from our default controller. So everything is great right now. So right now we don't need this, and now in our mark controller after this I name it as a public, and then function, and then our method name. So into this method, that is a post method, we have to pass that request and then the $request. Okay, so that will be as a request and the $request. So first of all I want to get our count. That means how many students from here I want to add it. So for the reasons, in our this position I pass as a name as one of the hidden field as student ID, right? So here also I name it as a student ID. So from this position we have to first of all take it. So if you want to take it in our mark controller, I want to take one of the variable and name it as a student count. Okay, student count. So this type one of the variable I want to take, and then I want to take our request. That means the request, and then request our this student ID. Okay friend, I hope it's very much clear to you. So that is our requested ID. That is one of the hidden. I take it because with this student ID we have to actually get this data, and this student ID is one of the foreign key of our user ID, right? So now perfect. So I get this as a student ID, and now I want to put another condition. Better to put one of the here I make it as and method. Okay, that will be as the and method, and then I put one of the if condition. Okay, I put one of the if condition. Into the if condition, if they have the student count, so if they have the student count, then it will be obviously one of the for loop, right? Because it will be actually first of all store our first data, then the second data, then the third data. That means the loop will be started. So for the reasons here I want to add on the for loop. Okay, I add on the for loop. So that is our and if condition. Okay, that will be the and if condition, and that is our and for loop. Okay, I put some of the note for you, then it will be help. So first perfect. So in particular that area for loop will be started from the 0 0, and then I want to count it. Okay, I want to count our this one, so that will be the count function. So to the count function area I want to pass our this requested student ID. So now I simply pass this requested student ID. Okay, into the count area I take it. There is I plus plus. Perfect. So now we have to store this data. So if you want to store this data, better I want to take one of the variable as a data. So with this data variable, first of all I create one of the object as a new. Okay, new in our which table I want to insert this data. I want to insert this data in our this student marks. So for the student marks I have also created one of the model, and that is our model name as the student marks, right? So here with this I want to insert it. So first of all I want to create this model. Perfect, I want to create it, and then I want to add all that our rest of field, that means our data. So with this data, our database field name as a year ID. So I copy that year ID. So that is our year ID. So this year ID will be our requested year ID. Okay, that means the requested, and our requested field name. If you go to our add form, into the add form, our requested field name for the year, I name it as a year ID, right? Always actually prefer to use the same name. And then also here we have to add that multiple field. So I add that multiple field. Okay, and then our another field will be as a class ID. So now I copy that class ID, that will be as a class ID, and our requested field name is also as a class ID. So now I want to name it, that will be obviously as a class ID. And then after that, that is another field as assigned subject ID. I copy it. So that part, our assigned subject ID, our database type, and in our request, and in the request I name that our field name as a assigned subject ID. So I copy it. So that will be as a assigned subject ID. Okay, that will be as a assigned subject ID. Perfect. And then after that we have to add that our exam type ID. I copy that exam type ID. That will be exam type ID, and also in our request, into the request I name it as a exam type ID. So that will be as the exam type ID. And also we have to add our there is our student ID, right? That means this field I copy it, this field our student ID, and this student ID will be our requested student ID, and that will be also as a multiple data, right? That means a multiple our this I. So here I simply pass it. Because of all, if you go to our add page, here I also take this part, I make it as a hidden, and there is our student ID, and there is our one of the multiple one, right? So now I simply add it, and also from this position I pass that our ID number. So now I want to also take it. So that is the our database field name. Use the database field name, that is our ID number. I copy this ID number. Okay, I copy this ID number and then our requested ID number, and this requested ID number also I pass it from here. You can see I pass that one of the hidden file as a ID number, and that is also one of the array, right? So now empty array we have to pass it. So also here I want to pass our this I variable. So now I simply pass it, because from to this position it shall be actually add multiple student ID data, multiple student roll number ID data, and after that there will be another one will be needed for the mark. Okay, so another field name as a marks, so I copy it, so that will be as a marks, and in our requested marks also be as a multiple one. I have also add another input field. You can see I add it as a marks, and this mark is the multiple array. So now I want to use it, that is your marks, and here I pass that I hope friend is very much clear to you. And after that I want to save it. So with this data I simply save all that our field name. Okay, that means the field details. I hope it's very much clear to you friends. So now that's all you have to do. Okay, and when it should be saved, I want to display some of the message as our toaster message actually. So we did a lot of the time into the profile. Here you can see there is actually the notification. I copy this notification, and now in our mark page here I paste it. Okay, so it will be display some of the notification as a student mark. Okay, I name it as a student mark. Okay, student marks inserted successfully. This type of one of the message it should be display. Our type will be as a success. And right now here I didn't create any page, right? So here I didn't create any view page. It will be returned direct to the back page. So back page will be better. So now I want to use it, not that route. I want to use it as a back page. So it is a back page. It will be returned direct with the notification. Okay friend, I hope everything is very much clear to you. So that's all for insert this data. So now if everything okay, it should be insert this data in our database. Okay, in our database student mark table. So now let's check this. Now I just clear the save all, and now go there. Right now that is totally empty, right? That is totally empty. Now I refresh it. Now I want to update some of the data, like I select as a class 1, select as a health, select as a fast terminal, search it. Every information is perfect. So now there is actually Ali, that means the Ali Khan, the name, and then there is another name, and also there is a different ID. So now I want to insert that mark. I want to insert that mark as a 40. I want to insert that as a 90, and here I make it as a 90. Okay, so I put some of the mark for specific all that is students. So now if everything okay, it should be insert this data. Now click as a submit. Yes, you can see friend, it's now showing as a sum mark. That means the student mark inserted successfully, and after that I make it as a back page. That means when it will be inserted all the data successfully, then it will be show some of the notification message as a student mark inserted successful, and then it will be returned direct to the back page, right? So you can see it's now redirected to the same page, that means the back page. So now let's check this out, our database. If you now go to our database table, click as a browse. Yes, you can see ID is added, student ID is also inserted, that is a student ID number is inserted, year ID is inserted, the class ID, assigned subject ID is a 1, exam type ID also inserted as a 1, and mark is also inserted. Right friend, that means everything actually working here perfectly. So right now if you want to add another one, now I select as a class 20, and now select as a class 2 subject. I make it as a health or English. Click select as a fast terminal, select it. So now you can see there is a different student. So now I also want to update it as a 90, 40, and then 50. So this type of on the mark I want to insert. Now click the submit. Yeah, it's now successfully submitted. That means the mark, that means student mark inserted successfully. Okay, you can see everything is inserted. So now if you select again, browse, yeah, data is inserted successfully. I hope friend you well understand about it. So now we successfully able to insert that our mark for our student. Okay, you can search everything from the year by the class, by the subject, by the type, and then you can visible it on here. So right now from here you can visible it, and also from here you can insert this data, right? So right now from here you can also insert this data, that means this is student data. So friend, here we insert this data from to the submit, we insert this data into the database table. So our entity is perfect, that means our mark entity is complete. So in our next video I want to discuss about that marks edit. So if you want to edit these marks, how can edit this, in our next video I will show you that things with a live example. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.